Welcome back everybody to another episode of our weekly Moto News Roundup, where this time we'll be looking at BMW's new concept bike, some new tech from them as well and also from Yamaha, and new direction for KTM with the bikes spotted in their museum, Ducati make a start on their new MX bikes, Honda reach a ludicrous milestone, Suzuki are building a new factory, ENFIELD are working on a hybrid, and we'll round off with a new startup in the US selling cruisers with, it has to be said, a bit of a difference about them. But first up, let's kick off with this fairly spectacular looking new concept from BMW, which made its debut last week at the Concorso d'Eleganza event in Italy. Now it's called the Concept RR, and a lot of it is based upon their rather successful factory M1000 RR superbike. As such, you're getting more than 230 horsepower peak, and also the engine management, the traction control, the engine braking control, and all the stuff like that trickles directly down from their racing program. Then you got the chassis, which is dripping in track-ready components, from the finned Brembo calipers to the massive front disc to the racing slicks. And it's all wrapped up in bodywork that's been made as light as possible with a predominantly carbon fiber construction. Interestingly though, this one appears to buck the trend for bigger and bigger aero winglets with slightly more moderate appendages than something like the current generation M1000 RR, and I believe that's possibly down to the fact that they've designed this one with three goals in mind. One is riding stability at very high speeds, two is maximum cornering speeds, but three is minimal air resistance for optimal top speed. For me, it's slightly better looking because of it, and I will say I do like the overall aesthetic with a very stealthy look because of that natural carbon finish, but also those little gold highlights that do add a bit of bling to it. Still, is this bike relevant, or is it just a concept that will never make it to the market? Well, I believe, actually, that this is a fairly decent sneak peek of what might be to come for the S1000RR and M1000RR, because head of BMW Motorrad, Marcus Flash, specifically said that never before has BMW Motorrad provided such an early glimpse into the future generation of RR models. So I guess some of the stuff we're seeing here could make it onto a production bike in the next 2 or 3 years. Although I will say, despite the fact that they teased it quite heavily and made a big fanfare of it, there's nothing particularly mind-blowing about it or revolutionary. Yes, it gets more power. Yes, the chassis looks absolutely tricked out. Potentially, the aerodynamics are one of the biggest developments, but I don't really see anything that looks like a massive leap forward for performance motorcycles. Is it just me though? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I guess potentially they've got other ideas in the works though that they might incorporate later, like this one that was reported on last week by Cycle World. It comes off the back of plenty of other innovative patents from BMW for aerodynamic tech, but this might be the most unusual or potentially quite advanced, with what looks like from the drawings a system of ducts and fans that are actually maneuverable, so they can point the airflow in a given direction to optimize the aerodynamics for a specific riding scenario. So they'll point in a different direction for cornering, for example, to what they would for acceleration or to what they would for braking. Certainly sounds pretty interesting. Potentially something like that could make it onto the next RRs. Although I should point out, it's not the first time that something like this has been used in the entire automotive industry, and so do check out that excellent article over on Cycle World if you want to find out more. I'll link to it down in the description. Also emerging this week, another patent, this time from Yamaha, for what looks to be a forced induction version of their already pretty punchy CP3 inline triple. Now this one was shown on Visordown, and the drawings appear to depict an electrical compressor, or E-turbo as they call it, mounted on a bike that looks not dissimilar to their MT-09 Naked. Now if you've been watching this show for the last couple of months, you'll know it isn't the first time we've seen something of this nature in recent memory, with Honda unveiling their new V3 engine, which also used a compressor, back at EICMA in Milan in November 2024. Now, the benefits of using one of these instead of a traditional turbo or supercharger is that you get some of the same benefits of extra performance and better fuel efficiency, but in a smaller sort of form factor that's easier to package, especially if you're trying to add it to an existing engine layout like the CP3, because I guess it would require a bit less of an overhaul to the fundamental layout of the engine. Now, with stricter and stricter emissions regulations constantly coming into play, could this be the next biggest trend that we're going to see in the motorcycle market? After all, two of the biggest players are already looking into it. In the car market, I did a bit of research and it says that in 2022 in Europe, 74% of cars sold had a turbo. And so maybe that's where motorcycles are heading next. I'd love to know from you if it's something you'd be interested in, especially if it prolongs the life of internal combustion engines. Or do you prefer your engines au naturel? Personally, I'm really interested to try it out, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now, before we get on to the next story, a quick reminder that our brilliant competition in partnership with Litelok is still open for entries, and so do check out the link down in the description below. It's very easy to enter, and also it's open worldwide. First prize is one of their brilliant X3 D-locks, which uses a special coating called baronium that means an angle grinder can take up to 20 times longer to cut through it than a regular unarmored lock. Second to that, we've got 3 vouchers for the runners-up with £100 on each to spend on their online shop. And for anyone else, we've also got a discount code running which will get you £15 off. So both the code and the link to the competition form are down in the description below. And so do check them out, get yourself signed up to be in with a chance of winning. Now, last week we covered that KTM has been saved again by a big injection of cash from one of their main partners, Bajaj, with them having to find close to €600 million to pay off their creditors in a deal struck through the courts a couple of months prior. Hopefully that means they can start to move forward and get the company back to a fairly healthy state eventually anyway. But in the meantime, it looks like they're still developing new bikes, and this one could mark a bit of a different direction. You see, it was shared by one of their sponsored stunt riders, Rock Bagoras, and it looks to be basically their first ever electric road bike. Now, personally, I think it looks alright. It looks a bit like a 390 Duke with a lot of the same shapes, maybe a little bit more futuristic, and Bike Wally speculate that it'll probably use a 10 kilowatt motor and a 5.5 kilowatt hour battery, specs that KTM floated themselves in a previous discussion about their electric strategy. Realistically, that would make it predominantly focused on urban riding, but yeah, I wouldn't mind riding a little lightweight electric Duke around for zipping through traffic. Thing is though, I think I might be in the minority on this one because the level of comments on Rock's post are really quite negative, and you've got to keep in mind these are probably largely KTM fans because he's sponsored by them, so that's all he ever really posts about. There's a lot of, if it ain't got an engine, it ain't a Duke. Also a lot of kind of puking gifs, and so I guess this might not be the bike that's going to get them back on the up, although I do feel a bit sorry for KTM. It maybe is just time to cut them a bit of slack. Over at Ducati though, they're also trying something a bit different at the moment with their recently announced 450 MX bike, which uses their signature Desmo valve system. Now, just a couple of days ago, they issued a press release which said the first ever Desmo 450 MX has actually already rolled off the production line, and so that means they'll be available in selected European dealers from this July. Then North America will follow soon after, then the rest of the world. And so good news if you like the look of one of those, and it might be time to go and have a word with your dealer. Now certainly Ducati will be hoping it's a big sales hit and it'll help them boost their sales volumes by expanding into another part of the motorcycle market. But I doubt they'll ever get close to the levels that we're seeing from Honda, who reached a frankly ridiculous milestone in the last couple of weeks. MCM report that on Thursday, May 22nd at 9:30 AM, a 125cc scooter rolled off the production line in India, in itself an unremarkable event. However, this humble scoot represents a landmark for the world's largest motorcycle manufacturer, as Honda's 500 millionth motorcycle they've produced. That's 500 million, which is just a mind-boggling number of bikes. Although perhaps not that surprising since they do dominate the global motorcycle market with a whopping 40% share. MCN were present at the factory for that momentous occasion, and so do check out their story for a bit more background and also some lovely pics. Honestly, the only brands that ever come anywhere near Honda, and they're not even that near anyway, but the ones that are even nearly comparable are the big Japanese manufacturers, and Suzuki are looking to close the gap with a new factory planned, also set to be built in India. Now, Rider Part report that this would be their second factory there, and it would boost their production capacity when it's fully up and running by 2027 by another 750,000 bikes per year, which, that's way more than most of the manufacturers sell in total over the year. Now, there's no word on exactly what bikes would be produced there, but I guess with the local market in mind, you could be looking at scooters, the smaller capacity bikes, and also Rider Part speculate that it could even be electrics like the e-Bergman that they recently announced. Meanwhile though, over at Royal Enfield, apparently a project is underway in collaboration with CF Moto to build their first ever hybrid motorcycle engine. Now, according to Autocar Pro, the company is in advanced discussions with Chinese motorcycle giant CF Moto to license engine technology for a next generation 250cc platform, codenamed V, according to sources familiar with the matter. This move isn't just about powering a new bike, it's a calculated play to meet India's looming fuel efficiency mandates, to tap into the growing entry premium market and lay the groundwork for a hybrid powered future. You see, it's not just Europe with the increasingly strict emissions regulations. India has its own with the BSVI Phase 2 emission standards, and also an upcoming set of rules called CAFE, or Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency, which I think basically means that the company's entire portfolio of bikes on average will have to consume less fuel. Now, I guess a hybrid would probably do the trick, but given that Kawasaki's hybrids haven't exactly, been flying off the shelves this year, it'd be very interesting to see if Royal Enfield could actually make a success of it. Still, if you like your bikes to guzzle fuel, well then these cruisers might be the ones for you, with Rider Part reporting on a startup in America that focuses specifically on diesel-powered cruisers. I've done a bit of research as well, including reading their website. The company's called Axiom Diesel Cycles, and even with plenty of reading up, I'm not entirely sure as to why. You see, they quote their founder Matthew Lack as saying, "I couldn't buy one, so I built one." And then the website goes on to say that the diesel bike is a great conversation piece, and they saw the need for something new and different on the motorcycle market. I guess it's more about novelty then than any practical benefit, and that seems to be confirmed if you have a quick look at the specs. Now, it's got a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo engine, but being a diesel, of course, it's not exactly high revving, and so peak power tops out at 24 horses from a 1 litre engine, and also peak torque's not exactly massive at 60 Newton meters. On top of that, judging from the footage on their YouTube channel of a dyno run of one of their prototypes, it's not about to pass Euro 5 Plus or BSVI Phase 2 either. And while they do have ambitions later down the line to make a production bike that costs around $20,000, well, as it stands, they're just offering bespoke builds. And there are 2 models, but the most affordable of the 2 starts at $49,500. Sounds like a lot of money for a 24 horsepower bike, although then again, it probably does absolutely nail their brief of being a great conversation piece. As always, I'd love to know what you think of the stories this week, so do let us know down in the comments below. And if you missed any of our other videos this week, I'll put a playlist on the screen now so you can catch up on them, with some stunning custom builds from the Bike Shed show in London, a first ride on the new Yamaha R9, and also the 2025 version of the Triumph Trident, which I think offers excellent value for money now. If you do like your techie features, do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews like this right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.